Set in the late 19th century, a place called Yukon in northwest Canada where several legends about large amounts of gold under its land mass have arisen, attracting hundreds of people from around the world travel to Yukon in hopes of landing the treasure to themselves. But to get to the far north, the pioneers needed strong, healthy dogs to pull their sleds over the mountains. This started a massive dog abduction throughout the northern hemisphere. At Santa Clara, California, we meet Buck, a dog. He lives a comfortable, almost royal life at the estate of Judge Miller, his owner, who treats him more like a family member than a pet. Buck's sheer size and vibrant personality make him a well-known figure throughout town. Everyone loves him, but they also know Buck has one big weakness: food. He's a glutton and a troublemaker when left unsupervised. On the day of Judge Miller's birthday, the household is buzzing with preparations for a grand celebration. The kitchen staff work hard to prepare a lavish outdoor feast. Knowing Buck's reputation, they take extra care to hide all the dishes so he doesn't cause any chaos. Meanwhile, Buck is sent to town with a housemaid for errands. As usual, Buck can't resist chasing a passing cyclist, causing a ruckus in the streets. Among the crowd is a stranger, a shady man watching Buck's every move. This man is a dog thief, part of a growing network of people abducting strong dogs to sell them into the Yukon. Back at home, the feast is nearly ready. Judge Miller asks for the table to be moved outside, believing Buck is still out and won't ruin things. Unfortunately, Buck has already returned. Smelling the food, he sneaks up to the table right as the family is gathering to take a photograph. Buck lunges at the food and grabs a massive piece of chicken. Furious and embarrassed, Judge Miller has had enough. As punishment, he locks Buck outside for the night. In the dark, the same man who had been watching Buck earlier returns. He uses a toy ball to lure the unsuspecting dog and traps him in a crate. He's carted away from the estate, loaded onto a train, and later onto a ship. With no food or water for days, Buck survives only by drinking rain through tiny gaps in the wooden box. When the crate is opened, Buck is dazed, hungry, and disoriented. He tries to escape, but the man waiting for him beats him harshly with a club. This traumatic moment marks the first time Buck understands the brutality of mankind and the fact that fighting back isn't always an option. Now subdued, eventually, he arrives in the cold, foreign landscape of Alaska. Buck is taken to a dog market. Dogs are sold off to gold hunters, mail carriers, and explorers. Eventually, a French-Canadian mail courier named Perrault spots Buck and decides to buy him. Perrault works with his partner, Francois, and the two are responsible for delivering mail across the frozen Yukon by dog sled. Francois is skeptical. Buck isn't exactly what they had in mind. At the sled camp, Buck is introduced to his new pack. The team is led by Spitz, a fierce white husky who immediately sees Buck as competition. The other dogs range in size and temperament, but none are as large or unusual as Buck. Before they begin the journey, Perrault explains the route and prepares the dogs for a long, grueling trip to Dawson. Buck, still adjusting to his new collar and unfamiliar snow, fumbles through his first few runs. He's dragged along by the team, slipping and stumbling. At one point, he gets distracted chasing a hare, runs off course, and causes the entire sled to tumble off a ledge. Despite the accident, Perrault encourages Buck. He tells him that from now on, they're a team. If one falls, they all fall together. At the end of a long day's journey, they make camp. Buck, unaccustomed to freezing temperatures, tries to sneak into Perrault and Francois' tent for warmth. He shoves Francois out in the process, earning a quick eviction. As he lies shivering in the snow, Buck sees a mysterious black wolf with glowing yellow eyes watching him from the shadows. It's not a threat, it's almost like a vision, an ancestral spirit calling out to him. As days pass, Buck continues to struggle but also begins to adapt. The snow now becomes familiar under his paws. His instincts sharpen. He learns when to slow down, when to pull harder, and how to read the terrain. Though Spitz continues to glare at him with jealousy, Buck earns quiet admiration from the rest of the team. Each night, the dogs are rewarded with fish for their work. Spitz often bullies the others, stealing their share without consequence. Buck intervenes, not with aggression, but by offering his own fish to the hungry pup. It's a simple act, but the pack sees it. Slowly, Buck's leadership qualities begin to emerge. On another occasion, the dogs are thirsty after hours of running, but Spitz refuses to let them drink from a small frozen puddle. Buck walks over, cracks the ice with his paw, and creates a pool for the others. The dogs come to drink, rallying quietly around Buck. The team continues their journey until they reach a large, icy lake. Francois cautiously steps onto the ice, testing it with a stick to ensure it can hold the weight. But disaster strikes. She slips and plunges into the frigid water. Perrault runs to help her, but before he can reach her, with no hesitation, Buck jumps into the lake. He finds Francois and pushes her toward the surface. For a moment, it seems he might not make it, caught in the swirling current beneath the ice. But then, as if guided by the spirit of the black wolf, Buck finds a weak spot in the ice, breaks through, and helps Francois reach safety. Perrault, overwhelmed with emotion, hugs Buck tightly. From a distance, Spitz watches all this unfold. That night, as the dogs rest near the campfire, Francois gently thanks Buck and offers him some of her own food. The bond between dog and human is growing, but Spitz has had enough. Later that evening, Buck chases a hare through the snow. He catches it and then, surprisingly, releases it unharmed. Spitz appears moments later and kills the hare violently, asserting dominance once again. The other dogs watch in dismay. Buck, who has always avoided confrontation, has finally had enough. Spitz growls and lunges, slamming into Buck with all his strength. Though Buck tries to avoid the fight at first, the attack is relentless. Spitz lands bite after bite. Buck stumbles, weakened, and tumbles into a log. Spitz, thinking he's won, approaches to finish it. But then, something changes. Buck sees the black wolf again, his wild spirit calling to him. He gets up, growling with new strength. Buck dodges Spitz's next attack and counters with a powerful bite to the neck. He knocks Spitz to the ground, and after a tense pause, Spitz surrenders. Spitz walks away into the darkness, never to return. The next morning, Perrault and Francois discover that Spitz is gone. With mail still to deliver, they try to assign a new lead dog, but none of the others respond. Buck, sensing his time has come, steps forward and takes position at the front. Perrault is hesitant, but the rest of the pack already recognize Buck as their leader. With no other choice, he fastens the lead harness on Buck, and the change is immediate. The sled takes off, faster and more coordinated than ever before. Under Buck's guidance, the team moves like a well-oiled machine, covering ground with unprecedented speed. However, the weather shifts. A snowstorm begins to sweep through the mountains. Perrault commands Buck to veer left toward their usual route. But Buck hesitates. His instincts tell him to go right. He leads the team right, and they narrowly avoid an avalanche that crashes down the left path moments later. Thanks to Buck, they all survive. Eventually, the team reaches Dawson City on time, possibly ahead of schedule. It's a big win for Perrault and Francois, who have never delivered mail so efficiently. Among the cabins in the snowy settlement, John Thornton, the kind man who Buck met long ago, is seen writing a letter to his estranged wife. He still mourns the death of his son and tries to find peace in the cold. As he hands the letter off for delivery, he sees Buck again. Their eyes meet. Thornton smiles, remembering Buck's earlier kindness. Perrault receives a letter informing him that the mail route is being shut down in favor of the telegraph. The government no longer needs dog sleds to deliver messages. With a heavy heart, Perrault and Francois sell the dogs, including Buck, to a new owner. Enter Hal, a greedy and inexperienced gold prospector. He buys the dogs, including Buck, along with a heavy sled and an overpacked load of supplies. With him is his sister Mercedes and her husband Charles. Despite the fact that spring is coming and the ice is melting, they set out into the Yukon. Hal knows nothing about sledding, and his mistreatment of the dogs is immediate. The sled is far too heavy for the weakened animals, and they can barely pull it. When they collapse from exhaustion, Hal blames them. He beats them, ignoring warnings from townspeople. As they prepare to leave Dawson, John Thornton steps in. He warns Hal not to continue. The ice is dangerously thin, and the journey could be fatal. This time, John intervenes physically. He unties Buck and refuses to let him go. Hal, furious, storms off with the remaining dogs and disappears into the wilderness. Thornton brings Buck home and nurses him back to health. Buck, loyal and protective, begins to bond deeply with the quiet man. When Hal returns to town days later, battered and furious, he accuses Thornton of ruining his expedition and attacks him in a bar. Buck jumps into action, driving Hal away before any serious harm can be done. Later that night, Thornton talks to Buck by the fire. He shares the story of his late son and the grief that destroyed his marriage. He shows Buck a map. His son's dream was to explore the unmapped wilds of the Yukon, the places where no human footprints exist. Thornton, still seeking healing, decides to fulfill that dream. He invites Buck to join him. They set out together by canoe, traveling across vast rivers and silent forests. For days, they journey deeper and deeper into untouched land. Eventually, the canoe is damaged beyond repair, and the two continue on foot. They come upon an old, abandoned cabin by Clear River. They decide to stay. The next morning, while bathing, John finds gold at the bottom of the river. Not just a little, huge flakes of gold shimmer beneath the surface. He's found the very treasure that thousands of men had searched for. But for John, the gold means little. Its peace is after. Life in the cabin is simple and quiet. While John Thornton occasionally pans for gold, Buck begins to explore the wilderness. One day, while wandering near the edge of the forest, he catches sight of a white wolf, graceful and wild, unlike any animal he's known. Buck follows the creature, but the wolf vanishes into the trees. That night, The wolf's howls echo through the valley, stirring something ancient within Buck's soul. The next day, Buck ventures out again and spots the white wolf perched on a distant rock. One day, during a hunt, a young wolf slips into a rushing river and begins to drown. Buck doesn't hesitate. He charges into the water and pulls him to shore just in time. The pack witnesses this act of courage and, finally, accepts Buck as one of their own. He begins to live between two worlds, the loyal companion to John Thornton and the free spirit of the forest. With the wolves, Buck learns to hunt, yet every evening, he returns to the cabin to sit by John's side. They don't need words, just presence. Back at the cabin, John writes letters to his ex-wife, reflecting on Buck's transformation and his own healing. He wonders if he's become too attached to the wilderness and whether this journey has made him better or simply numb. Eventually, John follows Buck deep into the forest and discovers the truth. Buck now spends his days playing with the wolves. He watches the dog run free, chasing and being chased, howling with joy. Seeing this, John understands. Buck has found his place. His home isn't the cabin or the old world. It's the call of the wild. John returns to the cabin alone that night and makes a decision. He tells Buck the next morning that it's time for them to part ways. Buck has found a new family now, and John must return to his own. He packs a small amount of gold, just enough to rebuild his life, and tosses the rest back into the river. Before leaving, John asks Buck to come by the cabin one last time so they can say goodbye. But that final moment is never to come peacefully. Later that night, as a peaceful breeze sweeps through the trees, a gunshot pierces the air. He fires a shot into the lantern outside, setting the wooden cabin ablaze. Hal, crazed and vengeful, has tracked them down. Smoke pours into the sky as Buck, deep in the forest, hears the chaos and races back. Hal demands John hand over the gold. Tossing the satchel to the floor, he says, "No amount of gold will bring back my son." Hal isn't satisfied. He raises his gun to finish the job. But just then, Buck bursts through the flames and tackles him to the ground. Hal strikes Buck with a club, and for a moment, Buck is frozen, haunted by memories of his past abuse. But this time, Buck grabs the club in his jaws, yanks it from Hal's grip, and throws him back into the burning debris. The roof collapses, and Hal is swallowed by fire. Buck rushes to John's side. His old friend lies wounded, a bullet in his side, bleeding heavily. With labored breath, John places a hand on Buck's head and whispers his thanks. Buck rests beside him as the flames burn low, refusing to leave him alone. John dies with Buck by his side. The next morning, the white wolf appears and gently approaches Buck. She doesn't need to speak. Buck follows her into the trees. He glances back at the smoking ruins of the cabin, at the place where one chapter of his life ended and another began. In time, Buck has pups with a white wolf and becomes the leader of the pack. He is wise, strong, and free. He still carries the memory of John Thornton with him, a man who gave him kindness, freedom, and the courage to choose his own path. And so, Buck answers the call of the wild, not just as a follower, but as a leader. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can watch more videos like this. Thanks for watching and keep loving.